Meltdown in Dometown. Time for a USC quarterback change. Trojans in bowl game danger. Coaching candidates. The latest leaderboard. Arizona game preview. And our Pac-12 weekly predictions. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to We Are SC's Inside the Trojans Huddle, week number 9. Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion with We Are SC columnists and staff writers. So we start the pregame show off with introducing our panel this week. Mark Culkin, We Are SC columnist who writes Monday's Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday's Takeaways, in addition to practice reports. Scott Schrader, We Are SC's senior recruiting director who has 19 years of experience of covering the USC Trojans as both a reporter and USC recruiting authority. Eric McKinney, publisher and editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com. And I'm Greg Katz, We Are SC columnist who writes the obvious and not so obvious, and IMHO Sunday. All right, you've got the players. Let's play the game. First quarter. Well, panel, what did we learn from the Trojans' 31-16 loss to Notre Dame on Saturday? Scott, Mark, Eric, you guys are all there, but Scott, we're going to start off with you. What did you learn?
I think what we learned is that, USC is just not really that good of a football team. It's the same thing every week. I think they, at least from my perspective, played hard from start to finish. I didn't really sense any give up in the football team, but they didn't really help a whole lot on the scoreboard. But, I think, we're almost talking about four years into USC not scoring in the red zone. And we can go all the way back to Sam Darnold and how they had issues scoring inside the red zone there. So they go to Notre Dame this week, knew they had to play hard for 4 quarters, knew they couldn't make mistakes, knew they had to score touchdowns and not field goals. But in this game, not only did they not score field goals a couple of times, touchdowns, they didn't score field goals. So they, you walk away from the 10 and the 15-yard line and you score 0 points twice. And then whatever happened at the end of the first half with, not spiking the ball and running out of time in field goal range, that's quite a few points to leave on the board, to take off the board at South Bend. So I think what we learned is that, USC has got a lot of work to do and they can't get this ball rolling soon enough.
All right. Well, I think we have another person that probably has a real point of view on this, and that's, of course, our lovable Mark Culkin. So, Mark, pontificate, dude.
Yeah, I thought this was really educational, so I think we learned a lot, and I took some notes. So, what did we learn? Number one, we learned that we didn't lose the game; we ran out of time. Yeah. We learned that somehow, when you have less than 30 seconds to play in the first half, a pass play got communicated into a run play with no timeouts. That happened. We learned, though, that Keaton Slovis does have some good wheels and can run down a defender when you throw an interception in the red zone.
And make a tackle.
And make a tackle, yes. Which, by the way, had him tying Jake Jackson for the same amount of tackles in the first half. And that's not a reflection on Jake Jackson as much as it's a reflection on how he's being miscast. And we'll talk about that later. We're learning that Drake London is going to put up huge numbers this year, and he's probably not going to have a lot to show for it in the win column. Right now he's putting up Michael Crabtree numbers. I don't even know what they are, but they're like, no one's even close to these numbers. So if he wins the Blitnikoff Award, great. Hopefully he can make it through the season without getting hurt. What else did we learn? Oh, we learned ultimately that USC has to find 3 more wins in their last 5 games to be bowl eligible.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, my friend. So let's ask the editor-in-chief his perspective on what he witnessed in the storied venue known as Notre Dame Stadium. Eric?
From this game specifically, we learned one thing. We learned a bye week can't fix it. That was the only thing that we hadn't seen up until this point. What if they got an extra week to work on this? That's the one thing they had going into Notre Dame, and still no answers. And so at this point, we're not learning anything about the team from that game in terms of, we didn't know they could do this, or we didn't know they couldn't do this. We know what the problems are. The coaches know what the problems are. The players know what the problems are. And we're not even learning that they can't fix it or they don't know how to fix it. We've known that kind of for several weeks too. So at this point, we're seeing what we know we're going to see coming out of here.
Anything else to add?
No, that's it. Again, that they had an answer potentially with can you get it figured out during the bye week? Same stuff on the field against Notre Dame. So again, I didn't come out of there, having learned anything new about USC.
Greg, can I add one thing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we learned that at Notre Dame, you're allowed to take photographs of recruits inside the stadium and on campus. Just thought I'd throw that in.
So that's not against compliance rules.
I'm guessing.
All right, well, I'm going to give my what did I learn? Well, I learned that if you had never seen USC play, you understood how horrible their clock management was at the end of the half. I felt that everything you needed to know about the miscommunication, the coaching blunders, the players' indecisions, it was like watching Abbott and Costello for the older people, Dumb and Dumber, call it what you want. I thought it was an embarrassment. Certainly to people that follow football, former players, coaches, it's like, come on, really? But I want to hit on a point that I thought young Culkin there brought up at the very beginning, which I think is very important. In that post-game news conference that took place with Dante Williams, to start off the press conference, say, I didn't think we really lost the game. We just ran out of time. I said to myself, if you're looking to be a coach in the future, to me, that really was look, if they lost by 1 or 2 and, we're close to making it close, then I could say, yeah, we just ran out of time. But really, when you're down by at least 2 touchdowns, that was his inexperience showing. My question, I was talking to a friend of mine who was at the game, aside from our panel here, and they were saying that, it was hard to believe that the way the game was ending, that you could accept that type of comment after the game. And I said to this person, I said, has Dante Williams, who I don't blame, honestly, for where we are today, has he ever even coached a junior high team and be the head coach of it? I mean, to ask a guy like this to even be a head coach in this situation is really difficult for anybody. And I kind of felt sorry for him because he knows he's got to say something and he doesn't want to make his team feel bad. But I think when he looks back at the game film of his interview, he's going to say, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But really, that's kind of water over the bridge. So I think we pretty much expanded on how we go. So let's head on over to the second quarter. So panel, I know that this is going to be a hot topic because I think that at this point in time, you have to ask yourself this question. Is it time to make a quarterback change? Mark, I know you've got some opinions on that. How do you feel about that?
As far as just making a complete starter change right now,
you interpret it any way you wish.
Yeah, I would probably wait until after this weekend. I definitely want to see, another quarterback play against Arizona. How much, the staff can determine, that's up to them. But once you make that quarterback change official, in other words, if you play Jackson Dart and say, hey, you're the starter, you've probably seen Keaton Slovis make his last start as a USC Trojan. hopefully he's not coming in to replace someone who got hurt before then. But I think you understand my point. You're making the change for the future, and you're doing it now. You're assuming that Dante Williams isn't going to be the head coach next year. You're giving the next head coach and his staff some game film to use. So that's a positive. There's some resume to be built there for Jackson or for Miller. But I would literally wait to make a full wholesale change starter till after the Arizona game. Because, there's a chance, and we'll talk about this later as well, Arizona could win. So, there's a chance USC's not making a bowl game. So you might as well just throw all the young guys out there and roll with it. But while there's a chance to still make a bowl game, no, I don't think you make a change this Saturday.
All right. Well, you kind of jumped us ahead to some of our topics later in the contest here, but that's okay. So, Eric, what say you in terms of Keaton Slovis? How do you see it?
No, I think Keaton's got to be the starter for Arizona. I think you absolutely can play Jackson. I think if Jackson could have played against Notre Dame, he would have. And that seems to be kind of the way the coaches were going all the way back into Washington State. That seemed to be that week leading up to it really felt like, okay, that they really do see some opportunities for Jackson Dart to come in and kind of work as a sixth man in basketball a little bit. And so I think that was probably going to be the idea had he not gotten hurt going forward the rest of the year. So if he's back to full health and can go, yeah, you absolutely play him against Arizona. I don't think you make him the starter at this point. And then I think you see how it is. Arizona gives a chance for everybody on USC to kind of feel good and get healthy a little bit if they show up and play well. So, but I think you can get a sense, even in that game against an Arizona defense that has not been good, an Arizona team that has been pretty terrible for most of the year, you can get a sense of how the team is reacting to each quarterback. And I think during that game, you can get a real sense of, do we still have it with Keaton, or has everybody turned the page to Jackson? And so I don't want to talk about Arizona State and beyond that until you get a sense of what's going on at Arizona, because if it's where you're sluggish with Keaton and Jackson comes in and you start rolling and everybody's kind of upbeat and it looks like, that's where the team is kind of grabbing onto, then yeah, you've got a real decision for Arizona State. If it's something where Keaton comes in and I think as a lot of us expect can put up big numbers against Arizona, that's tough to then all of a sudden use that game to say, no, he's not our guy going forward the rest of the year. So I wouldn't have an issue. Keaton starts kind of every game. Again, if the team's kind of locked in and he's playing, as well as he did against Notre Dame. I don't think he came out and had a terrible game against Notre Dame or was kind of the only reason that USC lost that game. So I think he still gives you a chance to go out and move the ball. But yeah, as far as what happens during the Arizona game and then after it, I've got nothing yet until I kind of see how that goes.
All right, Dr. Schrader, your examination of this issue. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree with those guys that Keaton should be and will be the starter against Arizona. I think that if Jackson would have been available to play after the Washington State game, for all we know, he could have been the starting quarterback at Notre Dame, but he hasn't been available. So he said he was about at 85% after the game in South Bend, and he said he will play this week. So I do anticipate him playing at some point against Arizona. But like these guys said also, if Keaton's out there playing and he's racking up big yards and USC's putting a lot of points on the board, it really doesn't make sense to change quarterbacks. But I think USC has the best opportunity to win football games if Jackson Dart is available to play. So I think if there's any struggling going on with Keaton, I don't think there'll be any hesitation to put Jackson in. But, I think just alone with the red zone situations, USC is this tied for first, let's say, in offense in the Pac-12, among Pac-12 teams. And that's just basically the yardage that they're putting up each game. So they're not doing all that bad in between the 20s. But once they get into the red zone, it's just been a forever of not scoring touchdowns. So I think Jackson Dart gives you the best chance to score touchdowns if we get in the red zone. I kind of like what happened at Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler wasn't exactly tearing it up, but he really didn't get replaced until he came in and brought them back at Texas. So I think barring something like that happening, you're going to have Keaton Slovis be the starter.
All right. Well, that gets around to me. First of all, I'm not going to sit there and argue with what any of you have said. I think the main thing to me is, was the difference in the game Keaton Slovis on Saturday? Absolutely not. And anybody who says that to me is like a crying baby. I mean, I just don't see why in the world people would turn and try to pin the blame on Slovis, including his own teammates, I might add. It's very easy to sit there and say, he's the problem. I would turn to that team in the locker room and say, no, you're the problem. He may be part of the problem, but he isn't the problem. And I would start Keaton Slovis personally. I think he's earned that right. It's not his fault. We could go into this for another 2 shows in a row and talk about it. But I think that it is on the table with Jackson Dart. If Jackson Dart comes in and obviously fires up the team and they start moving the ball like they haven't in the past, especially in the red zone, then if Keaton Slovis did get replaced because of his, if Jackson Dart did beat out Slovis based on what happens on the field, I'm okay with that. But let it be based on what happens in the game. I think that all hands are on deck. And like I said, we'll talk about this here in a moment. Look, they're not going to win the Pac-12 South. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Okay. I think that what they have to do is try to make something out of nothing, turn a negative into a positive, such as go to a bowl game. And that's another argument we could have down the road. But at this point in time, start Keaton Slovis, bring Jackson Dart off the bench, and then roll the dice, see what happens. Unfortunately, they are playing Arizona. I think it's unfortunate only because if they lose, which we'll talk about later, and I don't want to get into that and then ruin the segment, but if they win, what have they proven? That they just tacked on another loss to the nation's worst college football losing streak. So from that point on, it should be a feel-good game, and I'll just leave it at that. All right, let's head over to halftime, which actually transition. Yes. Did someone have a question? Scott, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't. I just was.
I would like to just add though what Eric brought up a point earlier that if a bye week wasn't going to help, what is a regular work week going to do by making a change? So, no, I think we all agree making a change now isn't going to do a whole lot.
No, I totally agree with you. Now here's the halftime question. I try to be lighthearted on this, but the situation as it is, I wanted to fit this in. So I said, well, halftime's a good time to do it. Is USC in real danger of not playing in a postseason bowl game? Eric, what do you think?
Yes. Yeah, they are. I mean, they've got to find 3 more wins. Yeah. I'll go ahead and maybe slightly more than pencil, like a light pen. We have like an erasable pen. I'll do that with a win over Arizona. I think you can kind of count on that. But going forward, you need to find 2 more. And, Arizona State, Cal, UCLA, BYU, those are teams that can show up and play hard. And so far, USC, with teams that can show up, play hard, run the ball a little bit, that hasn't worked out too well for USC. So, yeah, I think there's a real chance right now that they don't go to a bowl.
Scott, you agree?
Sure. I mean, one of the topics was about, how would USC fare the rest of their games 4 weeks ago? And my opinion was they could probably have the ability to win every one of their games or to lose every one of their games. So, it's certainly going to be difficult to go to Arizona State and win. They have a really, really strong defense. UCLA is able to run the ball, and that's kind of USC's weakness on defense right now. But, I do think, I'm not going to disagree with y'all on whether Jackson Dart would have been the difference at Notre Dame or not. But do I think Jackson Dart could be the difference on whether they win the rest of their football games? Absolutely. So I think there's a better than good chance they'll make a bowl game.
All right. Well, now we go to Mr. Culkin. Do you think that would make a difference? But more importantly, do you think they're in danger of not making a bowl game?
To your first point and to what Scott said, yes, Jackson would make a difference just because he is going to infuse some more energy. I think there would be a team rally behind that. Now, again, we're talking about you're relying on a freshman to not make freshman mistakes down the stretch when there's a lot of pressure on this team to find wins. So let me ask you this question, Greg, and I'll just leave it at that because I think right now I'm with Eric, light pen with an eraser. How do you think the 1991 team is voting right now? Are they looking for the team to go on a 3-game winning streak? Or are they looking to get that monkey off their back?
Now, that must be a fun place to be.
I'll answer by saying this. No comment until the time limit is up.
Okay.
Now, I will say this. I think they're in serious problems. I think that you'd have to be should we say, a moron to say that they're not in serious trouble. Arizona scares me, not because I don't think that SC should win by at least 2 or 3 touchdowns, but Arizona has competed at times, and I'll use Washington as an example, where they played with them. And a couple of you have mentioned we don't know what the attendance is going to be for homecoming. Okay, it could be a really vanilla feeling, and maybe a Jackson Dart would fire up the masses. Okay, but if SC comes in flat, expecting to win, but not putting out the effort to do so, and Arizona, which has a lot of players from California, they have a reason to play. A lot of family members will be there. Arizona will take it quarter by quarter. And I think that if SC gets caught in the fourth quarter, and again, I'm kind of jumping ahead of where we're supposed to be, but I think that anything is possible with this team. Is impossible as it seems that you could lose to Arizona. It is possible, and a puncher's chance, if you will. So the overall question was, are they in danger? Absolutely, and that would lead us to a question down the road: that do you even want to see SC in a bowl game? What is the benefit of that? And we'll talk about that at a later time. So I think that we've kind of hit on that one. So let's get ready for the third quarter kickoff here. So I'm going to kick it off because I have a certain way I want to present this. So I'm going to take it first, guys. And I'm really intrigued with this head coaching candidates update situation. In fact, I'm going to make it part of one of my columns. Just what do we see from the candidates we believe are considered serious candidates? Of course, the latest one is Mike Tomlin, Carson Palmer, perhaps letting some cat out of the bag nationally. Palmer is a part of a group of Trojans that's advising, I guess, the committee. The committee, I guess, is Mike Bone and Brandon Sosna. That Tomlin could be a real, I think it's beyond a long shot. I know it's beyond a long shot to leave the professional ranks because Ben Roethlisberger is going to retire, and what are they going to do? But I'm discounting that. So I'm going to go over just a couple of candidates here. I'm not putting them in any particular order, so don't read into this. But I'm going to take first James Franklin. Now, here's James Franklin. They had number 7 Penn State, which is number 20 now. They're now 5-2. They were upset in 9 overtimes against Illinois, 20-18. I saw that. It was not a good look for Franklin. I personally am not a Franklin fan. I make no ends about it. I do not think he's a great coach. He might be a great recruiter, but you got to coach him. They're going to get their come to Jesus moment on Saturday. They're going to play at Ohio State. They are in real trouble to win their own division to get to the Big Ten championship. So Franklin is there, but that's his update. Next, Matt Campbell, of course. Iowa State is now number 22, 5-2 on the season. They upset number 15, Oklahoma State, 24-21. They're going next week to Morgantown to play at West Virginia. Luke Fickell, the no-brainer, obviously number 2 in the country, 7-0. They beat Navy 27-20, and then they go down into Louisiana to play mighty Tulane in the New Orleans area. Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator at Alabama, I still see him as a possibility. Alabama 7-1, number 3 in the country now. Of course, they beat Tennessee 52-24. They'll win this week because they don't play this week. They have a bye. When it came to my 5th person that I'm looking at, I had to make it a tie. Some people will disagree with me on this. I think a real comer, depending on how the season rolls, is Dave Aranda. Baylor's number 16. They're 6-1. Some of the teams they beat, okay, they're not exactly names that you probably have even heard of. They had a bye this week, but next Saturday, this coming Saturday, they play Texas. Okay, they play Texas. And I put Aranda there, and I couldn't leave out Jonathan Smith. He may be what I would call a long shot, but here's a guy whose team is now 5-2. They beat Utah 42-34, and they play at Cal. So those are my 4+5 tie people. But you're curious to hear who your top 5 candidates are, and if you could go worst to first, it'd be greatly appreciated. Scotty, what do you think?
Well, I mean, you hear all this James Franklin talk, and talking to the father of a recruit today, they had approached James Franklin when they were back there for a visit, and asked if the USC stuff was real, and of course he denied it. Said he's just using the smoke to gain more money from Penn State, or more stuff of what he wants. That almost guarantees that he wants the job, right? When you get that kind of response to recruits. The more you lie, the more apt the reality is that they're probably really interested. So, you hear from people from back there that kind of know the situation, and he wants the job. He would recruit really, 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 really well. If you're going to recruit like he does at Penn State, you're certainly going to be able to do that in Los Angeles. So I don't know how to do the top to bottom part. I like Dave Aranda as well. They had him hired once before as the defensive coordinator until the Baylor job opened up when Fuentes turned it down. But Matt Campbell, I'm a Matt Campbell fan because I feel like if you can do what he's done in Ames, Iowa, you're probably going to be able to do it anywhere, because Ames, Iowa is not an easy place to win football games to the level he's winning. Every once in a while they'll lose to teams, and it's like, now they've lost 2 games. The next thing you know, they're back on the rise again. There's never like that program since Matt Campbell has been there has not been down, maybe except the first year or two. I'm not going to leave Lane Kiffin off my list until we get a coach hired. So I'm keeping Lane Kiffin on my list, maybe even just for our guy Jake, just so we can keep him. He might have been asleep until he heard Lane Kiffin's name. So just checking in on that. But Luke Fickell, I'll be honest with you. The more that guy keeps winning, and the more I see his football team play, that's the guy. So I think that's 5 guys right there. So those are my 5.
Okay, Culkin, what's your 5, buddy?
Yeah, I'll use your list, and I'll probably throw in a name or 2 here. So Bill O'Brien, he'll be on the bottom of the list, not because he's doing anything wrong, just because I'm not a fan of another offensive-minded coach coming into the USC's next head coach, even if he is coming from Saban rehab. That's a major positive. I think this team needs to go in a different direction completely. So that would put him at the bottom of the list. Dave Aranda is intriguing to me. Again, he's got Baylor at 6-1. Someone asked me this question on the phone today. What would you think if Aranda brought Tom Herman along as the offensive coordinator? And that got me thinking a little bit. Do I want my offensive coordinator jumping into the scrum with Jackson Dart as my quarterback without his helmet? I mean, he brings the right type of personality, but I want to protect my quarterback. So I'm still not sure if I like that combination together. Like Scott, I'm a Matt Campbell fan. He got his upset of the year. He beat Oklahoma State this year. But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's defeated Iowa yet in his time in Ames. So as far as a big game, that is always going to be their biggest game of the year on their schedule, and he hasn't conquered that one. This whole Mike Tomlin thing that came up today, it's not the first time we've heard his name bounced around, someone from the NFL. I like it. I would strongly get behind that one. And, even though Matt Rule benched Sam Darnold, and they're off, that team is kind of going in the wrong direction right now as far as wins. He is still my number one guy, bar none. If there was ever a chance, I'd go after him. But there's no, right now, it appears that James Franklin's the leader. If you're, trying to weed through all the smoke and so forth, but we'll see.
Lane Kiffin.
A lot of bluster.
Lane Kiffin.
No.
I will.
N-O.
I will say this. That I appreciate. You're all right because you all believe in your choices, but let's find out from the editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com. The pressure is on you, Eric McKinney. What are your predictions or choices?
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of those. I would put, Tomlin at 5 right now, although if he shows even the slightest hint of interest, he goes up to 1 and maybe even, beyond that. James Franklin for me would be at 4. I think that he has maybe the best quality in anything, and that's that I think he would say yes if offered the job. And obviously, whoever takes it, you got to have that quality. So the fact that I think that that's true of him makes him like it. I think Penn State is probably maybe Arizona State for the Pac-12, that kind of idea. Penn State has Michigan and Ohio State, and Arizona State has Oregon and USC, where you're recruiting at that. You've got a state that produces some talent, but not enough. So do I think if James Franklin was doing what he's doing at Penn State, if he was doing that at Arizona State, that would look pretty good, I think. So that's something where, he hasn't won a lot of the big ones or anything like that. But if you can come to USC and you can recruit well and you can develop players, because Penn State produces some guys there, I think that puts you in a really good spot if you're the USC head coach, and trying to figure out if his success, the same level of success he had at Penn State is the exact same level of success he's going to have at USC or would have at USC. I don't know if you can make that exact apples to apples comparison. So I think that the way he kind of gets written off, and again, he's at 4 on my list. He's not at 1. He's not at 2. But I do think maybe there's some benefit of the doubt based on his situation at Penn State compared to what the situation he would have at USC is. 3 for me is Aranda. I love the kind of defensive style, and I love that he's been able, not that every week changes my opinion on guys, but kind of catch the momentum after last year and send Baylor off, regroup and get going in the right way this year. And obviously the Southern California ties and all of that would be big for him. And then 1 and 2 is Fickle and Campbell. I think I've said from the beginning that my thought would be it's Fickle until it's somebody else. What he's doing at Cincinnati it has been done before by other coaches, so it's not as, and I think Campbell kind of gets, the bump there. Succeeding in, like Scott said, in Ames, Iowa is not an easy thing to do. Succeeding in Cincinnati has proven to be easier than Iowa State comparatively, but the way Fickle gets his teams prepared to go and they show up every single game against kind of whatever the competition is, that they beat teams that are worse than them. They play up to teams that are theoretically better than them. That there is a lot to like, I think, about Luke Fickle. So right now, I think I'd probably give him the number 1 spot for me.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. I think since I'm the last totem pole, so to speak, I'm going to say, since I don't care that if everyone disagrees with me, I don't think Fickle's coming. I think he stays in the Midwest. I think in theory, if you wish he would come, I would be totally with you. Chris Arledge, by the way, in his delightful little column that I saw this morning on WeAreSC.com, I hope you all get a chance to read it. He says that he's a Matt Campbell fan. He would like Matt Campbell to come. I don't think Matt Campbell's coming only because I think he's a Midwest guy. And if one of those big, let's just assume for the sake of argument that Franklin gets the SC job, all of a sudden the Penn State job opens up, and who knows, what Campbell would do. I think one of the big issues, no matter if every one of you are correct, it's going to get down to paying your assistant coaches and the cost of living and who can he get. It's all about money, and paying the assistants. That's been a problem in the past. But you know what? We're gonna kind of hit on this every week. I think we're getting to that point. So as they say, let the best coach come forward. But I think a lot of it's going to be on what these coaches do at the end of the season in November, and who has the momentum and who the fans would accept, because that's going to be a big issue for Mike Bone and Brad Sosna. Is this going to be, they have to hit a home run? They have to hit somebody that the fan base is comfortable with, and that's going to be important. So we go into the fourth quarter. We do the symbolic lighting of the Coliseum torch, and I really got to get a new candelabra and light a torch for all of us, as simple as. But is it conceivable, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, that winless Arizona 0-7 could upset the Trojans for USC's homecoming game on Saturday in the Coliseum? Mark, pontificate a little bit for us on that. Do you think it's possible?
Oh, it's definitely possible, without a doubt. I remember sitting in the Coliseum, I think it was back in 1999, with about 25,000 fans, and Arizona just kind of came in, ran for close to 400 yards, I believe, and they left with a victory. So yeah, depending on how motivated this team is to finally get a home win this year in conference, without a huge fan support on homecoming, yeah, it's possible.
Well, yes.
All right. We enjoyed that. I'm glad. See, I'm getting humor in you guys. This is a very difficult time if you're a Trojan fan. We have to have some little lighthearted stuff going on. What do you think, Eric? Is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, 1 in 1,000. This Arizona team is so bad. The thing that they have going for them is they did play Washington tough. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a letdown losing that game is, or again, it's been so bleak for them this year. Can they grab onto that and go? They're going to throw some Wildcat quarterback stuff at USC. USC is going to have to tackle a guy who can run with the ball. So far, we haven't seen a whole lot of that from USC. Drake London is going to have, 230, 240 receiving yards. I would imagine something like that. They just try to let him go off there. If Arizona tries to spend a lot of time covering him, then maybe USC can go somewhere else and put up some points. I don't expect Arizona to win at all. But expectations for this USC team have been really hard to pinpoint this year. So at this point, you have to say there's a chance, because that's what we've seen from USC, that there's a chance that they could let anybody come into the Coliseum and beat them right now.
Scotty, what do you think, buddy? Is it possible?
Well, allow me to have a Bill Walton moment here. Does that look like somebody that's going to let his team lose to Arizona? Come on. Right there. Let me just tell you, Jackson Dart, we're all wondering, how the heck did Jackson Dart play that football game after getting hit so hard that his meniscus injury required surgery? And I know this is a little off topic, but just hear me out here. He said that it felt like his kneecap went through the back of his leg. He went in at halftime. He could barely get up. I'm not trying to build this up into like a Billy Kilmer moment or something like that, but this kid right here came back in and played that football game and finished on adrenaline alone. So I think as long as he's able to play, USC will not lose to Arizona. That's where I was going with my rant.
It wasn't adrenaline alone. He had a little Bill Walton motivation in there from some doctor help as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
He got an injection and it was not a vaccine. So yes.
I will say this. if the season is bad enough, but I'll tell you, if they actually do lose to Arizona, this season is going right down the toilet. I will tell you that at this point. And I think SC fans will all march out in the backyard of their house. And that will be the end of that. I think it's possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, I'll tell you what, I would not want to be Dante Williams in that press conference saying something like, I felt like we won the game. We just ran out of time. So there is a sense of drama for a homecoming game. You don't schedule a homecoming game with a team that you don't think you're going to knock the living daylights out of it. So let's hope from a USC perspective that SC can do that. But boy, if that game goes in the fourth quarter, it's going to be hell's bells. So be that as it may, we're in overtime. Our Pac-12 game predictions. Just a reminder that ASU and Stanford have drawn by. So we'll start off here with Washington State at Arizona State. By the way, all games are on Saturday. Washington State's at Arizona State, 12 p.m. kickoff on FS1. ASU is favored by 14.5 points. Scott, agree or disagree?
I got ASU.
Okay. Mark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ASU. Moving on.
Okay. Eric?
Yep, I'm with them. Arizona State.
Arizona State is the pick by me as well. All right, Colorado at Oregon, 12:30 p.m. kickoff on Fox. Oregon by 26 points. Mark?
Oregon, but they won't cover.
Wow, good call. Eric?
Yeah, I think this one would be interesting if it was at Colorado. Oregon has a way of getting up for big games and kind of falling asleep a little bit for games like this and letting a few slip away every year. But at Oregon, that's going to be tough for Colorado.
Yeah.
All right, Scotty, what do you say?
Yeah, Oregon's going to definitely win that game. I think all of the Pac-12 teams this year have the ability to go in against teams that they should wipe out and not cover. And so this could definitely be one of those games. But Oregon's definitely not going to lose to Colorado. That's for sure. At least 3 touchdowns.
I agree. I believe that Colorado just fired their offensive line coach this week, and we'll have a new one. I think that they will cover because I don't think Colorado can score. It's not a many points Oregon will score. I think Colorado does fight on defense a bit, but it could be like 31-0, 31-7, something like that. All right, Oregon State at Cal, 4 p.m. Pac-12 Network. OSU by 1.5 points. Scott?
Really? 1.5 points. Oh, well, I'm glad we're doing this because I'm going to go play some money on that game. Come on. Oregon State. I'm taking the Beavers. And I'm placing money on that game, too.
Excellent. Mark?
Wow. Really? Okay. I'm wondering if the line is that low because they're expecting a letdown game after, the big win against Utah. It is in Berkeley. So I'll still take Oregon State.
Eric?
Yeah, I don't know if Oregon State has a letdown game because I think they've got a coach who knows what they're doing. I think they have an offense that kind of shows up every single week and they know what they're doing. That being said, from what I know about the Pac-12 this year, Cal's going to win by 30 or something like that. It's just Pac-12 is just ludicrous this year. But I'll pick Oregon State.
Okay, so you're going to pick Oregon State. I am going to go with the Beavers. I think they're tough on both sides of the ball. Cal will be fired up because they won last week. Cal prides itself on defense, but they're really spotty on offense. So I think that Oregon State will win by more than 1.5 points. Here's a big one, of course. Pac-12 South Division. UCLA is at Utah. 7 p.m. game on ESPN. Utah is favored by 4.5. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, so I did a bunch of research on this, like I said, about the Pac-12. And so we're going to go with all of my research. And
Yeah.
it's Utah.
Was there any other paper in your hat, or was that the only one?
Yeah, we had all 12 teams in there because at that point, any answer is just as good as any other.
Yes.
All right, Scott, you jumped in. What do you think?
I think that the end of the Chip Kelly era happens on Saturday.
Now, wait a minute. We just can't move on quickly on this. You think that this will get him fired?
Yes.
Wow. Well, we'll definitely be watching for that. Mark, what do you think? Is this going to get him fired? And what do you think about the game?
Man, well, one, I think Utah will win. The storyline, well, yeah, man, yeah, sure.
Chip Kelly is the highest paid coach per win in the history of college football.
I think they'll wait till the end of the year if that
Well,
happens.
I do too, but I think
Yeah.
No, wait a minute, Strader. Don't back off now. You
all right, I won't back off. I won't back Lane Kiffin. What if he ends up at UCLA? How about that? You know how you take recruits sometimes just so the other team doesn't get them?
Yeah, I've got Utah. I've got Utah winning that game, though.
Okay. I am, I don't think that DTR is healthy. I think he's got throwing issues with his shoulder. I think Utah is in a fight for their lives after dropping that one to Oregon State. So I'm going to go with Utah. I think that the big cheering section, will have a say in it. I'm going to pick Utah only because I don't have a lot of confidence in DTR being healthy, and that's a bad place to go and play against a physical Utah team if you're hurting with your shoulder. All right, Washington at Stanford. That's a 7:30 p.m. game on FS1. Stanford is favored by 1.5 points. Eric, you agree?
Oh, I did a bunch of research on this one too, and yeah, sure, Stanford. I mean, Washington is that they got to find answers, and it's probably some offseason moves with the coaching staff there for the Huskies.
All right, Mark.
I'm hoping this game goes 10 overtimes.
You're having trouble falling asleep? Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah,
6-3 and 10 overtimes.
Man,
we've got to be able to do better than we've got to be able to do better than the Big Ten. That's all.
So who are you picking again? I'm sorry.
Stanford. Washington is god awful.
Scott, god awful.
yeah. I'll take Stanford.
And I will take Stanford as well. Every year I find a Pac-10 team that outside of the Trojans that really annoys me. And Washington is that team this year. I really find it annoying to watch them play. It's just not Washington football, in my opinion, with all due respect to Jimmy Lake. All right, final pick. Arizona at USC, 4 p.m., ESPNU. I'll tell you how bad it is that ESPNU could not even announce who the game announcers were going to be in a game, which is really tells you where we're at this point in time. USC is picked by 20.5 points. I don't know whether they took into consideration that SC doesn't score in the third quarter touchdowns. That's something you have to consider. But Mark, if you take that into consideration, what do you think?
Even with all the bluster and the negativity, I think USC covers and wins.
What is the spread?
20.5, Scott.
Yeah, it's going to be a homecoming for everyone to remember.
And that's almost an ambiguous comment, and I understand why. Scott, what do you think now?
I think USC is going to win. At 20.5, actually, I don't know why that kind of surprised me that it would be that high, because USC's had problems scoring that many points at times. But all comes down to that guy.
You have a lot of confidence in that.
J Darts. No, I do. But this is not just something that just happened all of a sudden because of Washington State either. This is that's a kid you could tell had something special written all over well before he got to USC.
All right, Eric, what's your say?
Yeah, USC 38-18. 18 actually is going to be the number of receptions for Drake London. He's going to set the USC single game record on Saturday.
So are you insinuating that Drake London will have more receptions than Arizona will have points?
No, same. That's why I did it. 38-18.
But they don't cover. God, they miss it by half a point.
Yes,
Well,
all of that went into this.
I mean,
a
how
lot
many people do you think actually bet on USC anymore?
well, that means there's going to be a lot of pressure on Parker Lewis. And as we know, he missed an extra point at Notre Dame, so anything is possible. So a lot of pressure on Parker Lewis if it gets down to the point spread. So I'm picking the Trojans. I think they should win by at least 3 touchdowns. But the beauty and the drama of watching USC football is you never know. Expect the unexpected and expect the expected. It's a strange thing. So anyway, thank you to all of our panel. A reminder again that USC is back home this Saturday afternoon for a homecoming game against the Arizona Wildcats. Kickoff at 4 p.m. By the way, homecoming officially opens on campus at 10 a.m. Game will be televised on ESPNU. Hopefully they will give us the announcers before kickoff time. Next Tuesday, we'll review the Arizona game, preview the Arizona State game, which is going to be a big game, and speak to developing topics, including the coaching candidates, and update there. And we'll try to do that each week because it is becoming a focus. So until next Tuesday, thank you, panel. Thank you to our On3 technician, Jake Evans. We thank all of you for watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. And there's one thing that we can always be sure of. Fight on, everybody.